on there?
They are, actually. They are. And there you go. Okay, so it finally started. Fantastic. Again, thank you all for joining me. Appreciate you all taking the time out. I will try to be as straightforward and move through this quickly. Again, for all of you who may have missed the first presentation, it will be available along with this one in either the Dropbox or the training site. The first presentation, we covered the products, their design, and the competition. In this presentation, we're going to cover calculation tools, kind of review the whole product line, and more importantly, how to present and apply these tools to quoting yourself and to your customer. I can get my thing to start moving. There we go. As all my presentations have been, and then these monthly basic trainings, you've essentially got the course description, which we all know what that is at this point. But the purpose of this second presentation, this P2, is going to be going through our calculation tools for not only blower comfort heaters, also the Radiant line of comfort heating. And it's important to point out, I'm not talking the process heaters, I'm talking the comfort heaters. We're talking personal comfort, temperatures of 60 to 90 degree temperature range. So that would be a specific line of our comfort heating. Also, I'll go through sizing tools, product selection, and the configurator. So hopefully, if you guys you get a little bit out of this, somebody that's new to it, get exposure to it. Somebody that's old, I've got some things I want to point out, and some tips and some stuff that you may or may not know is available to you. Now, something with the comfort heatings, I touched on the first. Comfort heating I touched on in the first presentation was more of the quickness to quote. In this specific line, the design's not necessarily intensive. It's not, there's a technical aspect to everything we do, but this will be applying some standard products, a compilation of standard products to solve a customer's application. And the faster we're able to do that in the field, or respond to the customer, or walk through their application with them, the better positioned you're going to be to get the sale with the customer. And many of you would probably agree with me, I would hope. My experience has been the faster you can respond, especially in this comfort heating realm, the more likely you are to get the order, get the customer's ear, and move forward. So with that, I'm going to go through the comfort heating sizing guide, which some of you may or may not know exists. It's a really good piece of literature put together by Paul Rannick, who some of you may remember him, used to be the product manager for our comfort heating, and Adam Holigenstein, actually. So, really good history there. These things, they do tie back to the I section of the catalog, so if you have to point customers to specific graphs, charts, design tools, it's really easy to do, and hopefully I'm able to illustrate that here. I'll go through the web calculator, a little bit of catalog selection configurator, and I'm going to mix some examples in along the way to hopefully cover this and in the end make this an easier product line for you to service yourself. It's not to say that you don't have to go for special pricing or help with our application engineering department. I just really feel like this is one of our product lines where being quick and able to do a lot of this your own is going to help you grow your sales and help your customers and help our position. So I'm going to start with the comfort heating sizing guide. This used to be in print, probably 10, 15, who knows, 20 years ago. It's now obviously digital. It's PDF. You can get it on the website, but I'll also be providing it at the end. It'll be a part of the email and the Dropbox and the training site. This goes through general room calculations, insulation factors for building materials, walls, ceilings. We're all familiar with that. The heat transfer basics on how the heat is applied, and then the type of heat we're applying through convection. Forced fan convection is another term they use. Radiant heating, and then pattern sizing for radiant heaters. Hopefully simplify that, because I really do think that this comfort heating is I don't want to say simple is the wrong word, but an easy concept and design to do yourself in the field. It helps your credibility with the customer if you're able to walk through this really quickly. And most of these things are already readily available in the catalog. I wanted to touch on this before I began. This is actually the second page of that sizing guide, and I really liked it. It stuck out to me. Again, Paul Rannick, Adam Holigenstein wrote this whole thing. But it goes through, we cannot anticipate all conditions under which this information in our products and manufacturer combined with the products. It's basically a statement stating that, you know, we're not responsible for your application. Now, on the surface, it seems a little kind of like a get out, you know, we're not responsible statement, but that's not true. It's also, and I've had this come up quite a bit recently, is the customer has to own the process. It's our job to educate them on what they're doing and how our products act, react, provide heat, and applied properly how they work. But in the end, the customer owns the process. And this goes for our heat trace, our systems, our boilers, everything along the line. But I really liked this statement when I read it. Now, the sizing guide, we do pull a lot of information from company or from organizations like ASHRAE, NFPA, a lot of those sizing charts and area classifications. They're mixed in there, and it's important to remember that there is some design and some organizations behind a lot of this input, but it's educating the customer on the process and the best way to apply it. And then we take that and apply it to our strategy to get the sale. Those of you who may, I mean, I would assume everybody on the call knows, but not always. ASHRAE is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning, and Engineers. Just throwing that out there in case you may not have been familiar with that. I'm just throwing that out there for you. So let's get started. Sizing, comfort, application. I had my technical basics last year. You're welcome to go back and refer to that, how heat is applied through either conduction, convection, radiation, so radiant heaters like the sun. And they all, again, it's all the same factors in the same equation. And now we have some charts and some sizing guides. I'm going to walk you through these to hopefully make it easier for you. You know, all your building, construction materials, insulation will have a U factor. We have charts, you know, that are pulled from ASHRAE and other companies. So these are industry standards that we're using. So you should feel really comfortable with the size and the design you get, but more importantly, how to quickly get to your answer about the customer. And in regards to quick, nothing's quicker than this chart. It's actually really good when you're on the phone with someone or somebody's, you know, getting an idea of their type of application or their size. You know, what am I looking at? Am I looking at a 10 kW heater? Am I looking at a 100 kW? Well, what's your parameters? Again, this is comfort size heating or comfort heating. So 70 degrees, that's the comfort level. That's where we're aiming for. And then the heat loss is based from that number and the area that it's applied. Is it in a building? Is it down in Texas? Is it up in Canada? That's where the curves become important and how the room is insulated and its size. It's labeled as A, B, C, and D. These are for quick references. It's not an exact number, but it's really going to get you close. And in this specific application of comfort heating, sometimes this is all you need. Now, you know, the A, B, C, and D are the extreme of the heat loss. So, you know, it basically describes the type of room we're talking. Either it's an inside room and, you know, an outside room uninsulated, or in the case of D, which a lot of us are going to come across as, you know, these are industrial applications a lot of times. These are, you know, guard shacks, steel buildings, warehouses. You know, you fall into that graph. And it's really simple to read from there, right? You're on the phone with a customer, they call in, hey, I got a room that's 20 by 13 by 9, whatever it is. You get a square foot. That's your volume. And you can take this chart and this graph, and it's in the I section in the back of the catalog too, page I-12. They say, look, we're looking at maybe 10 kW heater based on your, you know, 3,400 square foot of area. This is really quick reference guides, and to know that they're there. Some people knew they were there, some people didn't, but this gets you started down the right path, not only for yourself, but for your customer, get them in the right mindset. And if they want to take it a step further and we want to get, you know, maybe we're way up in kW or just it is a larger application and we don't need a quick estimate. These are for smaller applications here. We need to really do the calculation. Well, that's simple. Then we got to do the math. We got to walk through all the variables and put them in the list. Voltage and phase, we all work at Chromalox. We know what we're asking for there. That's what's powering our unit. Then we go with room size. Now, where we were quick sizing before, now we're going to give a little detail. So let's go, you know, room size. And if you have a room that's not a box, maybe it's in an L shape, a Y, whatever, you can start sectioning those off and do it and use that as your room area. It's the best way to interpolate your sizing. Doesn't mean it's still going to be as accurate as the information you put in it. R factors, you saw before where, sometimes you get the U factor of an item. U is just 1 over R. They're basically insulation factors. Important to remember, though, that insulation factors are rated on usually thicknesses. So the 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. Then air changes, something that once we get to the calculator, and the online tool for that matter, it does have impact to your calculation on what the heat is. Maybe this is a distribution center with big garage doors and it opens all the time, and we're vacating the air or air changes 4 or 5, maybe 10 times in an hour. You have to have enough supplemental heat factored in to heat that incoming air. So that can be a factor, and it's not something to overlook. Now, standard parameters, just like in tank heating or any of our other applications, what's your lowest temperature? What is your desired temperature? In the case of comfort heating, it's usually 70. Windows and doors, they have different insulation factors. We can build up a wall, we can build up a ceiling, we can do slab floors. The windows and doors will have a significant impact, so it is important to separate those out and apply those factors. We've all, had to get double, sometimes triple pane windows for our house for better insulation factors, and that's something to consider. Then floor construction, usually concrete pad, maybe it's a subfloor. All those factors are all in charts, and I'll show you right where they are, make it really easy to do. So you can do all that by hand if you want. The sheet's there, the chart's there, you do the math, you work all the way down. It looks an awful lot like a spreadsheet because it is. Now the factors we have. You can go through the PDF I'm going to send you with the design guide, and it's got a good amount of everything you're going to run across. But if it doesn't, it's simple. Google it. Those of you may have used Engineering Toolbox. That's actually really, there's a lot more advertisements on it than there used to be, but it still is a good place to go because a lot of manufacturers fill their information in there. So you'll get, a certain specific type of insulation that they're using, or, floorboard or laminate or gypsum wallboard. Whatever the application is and whatever they're putting in there, you can build it out from there. And then that outside design temp is where it's located. Again, is it in Texas? Is it in Little Rock? Is it in Canada? If you, NFPA, if you guys were part of that last month, we had, they have their standard lowest temperature ratings and average temperature ratings for those areas. It's just historical record. You can use that, you apply that, that's where your design comes from. Easy, quick, not hard to find. Well, we also have this, like I mentioned before, this looks an awful lot like a spreadsheet because it is. And it's even easier than that, it's on our website. If you knew or didn't know, it's right there. And I'm going to show you a couple quick examples, especially for those of you who are new to this, just to walk you through and also kind of correlate to real life, to give you an idea of what a quick room design would look like. So maybe a customer calls in, or you receive an email of a 10,000-foot square warehouse that's going in, or maybe it's a manufacturing facility, whatever it is. But you've already got the size and dimensions, or roundabouts. Maybe it's 120 by 90, or but you can get to a general design or size. Now, I know some of you are going to say that's not a lot of windows, it's not a lot of doors. There's a reason for that, and I'm going to show you here in a second. I'm going to skip over to this really quick. Hopefully it doesn't. So simply go to Resources, Engineering Tools, boom, right there it is. That spreadsheet. You can work this out with a customer over the phone. You can do this yourself with the simple parameters. Now, I kind of set the parameters so we can talk about them in a minute, but I want to show you how quick and easy and some of the quirks to this that you just need to, be conscious of when you're using it. So simple, that's easy. There's my 10,000 square foot. Now, the cubic feet, obviously, with the ceiling involved, much larger. Now, I put, I think it was, actually I have it over here. Apologize. So, we went with, 4 by 6 windows. There's a reason for that. Obviously, there'd be a lot more windows in a larger application, but I just want to show it to a point. The R factor. We have the charts and references right there. You simply click on it. I can tell you in the case of these windows, we're going to be double pane windows. So, really good insulated windows. So that's simple. There's your R factor there. And that's for that surface area. That's for the loss to the environment. Doors, same thing. I'm going to do, 2 standard doors, 2 garage doors altogether, 208 square feet. If you want to do the math, we can go back and do that for you. But I took care of this ahead of time. Here's one of those corks. You got to make sure you put the 0 in there. It won't take it. I know it seems strange. Net walls. Now here's something to be conscious of. It's easy to do. You calculate. We're talking the walls. We're not talking the ceiling. We're not talking the floor. We're talking just the walls, the outside walls. Well, in this case, it's 100 by 100 length, width. I'm sorry, 100 times 20, 100 length, 20 height, times 4 all the way around, but minus the windows and doors, those other areas with different insulation factors. So, you subtract it out. That's the number you get. Now, net walls. In this case, we're just going to use a warehouse. We're going to call them cinder block walls. As I noticed, for whatever reason, this factor is not in here. So I did, just like I mentioned before, Google it, engineering toolbox. It's for a 12-inch cinder block with the 3 openings in the center. It's 12, or I'm sorry, it's 2.5 insulation factor. So go from there. You go to roof. That's easy. That's 100 by 100. That's, so we got our square footage, right? 10,000. Same for our floor. And just to speed things along, I did the math. This is a well-insulated roof. It's at 12. A floor slab, 12 inches thick, concrete slab is 1.28. Obviously, again, you've got those factors. And we'll do some room changes of 2. I'm almost there, and we'll get to the discussion in a minute. Outside design temperature. Back to those charts, this is the minimum, but worst case scenario. Now, they're loaded on here from ASHRAE charts. You can look them up online. In the case I'm in Colorado, Denver, let's use -5. -5. Desired temperature 70. Well, that's easy. You come down here, wow, we're already done. Now, 431,000 watts seems like a lot. It really does. And there's certain factors we can always adjust. Better insulation. You can actually show a customer better insulation in this case. More windows, more doors. But what I'm trying to illustrate here is, what is that? Well, that's actually only 10, 50 kW HVHs, or 20, 25 kWs evenly spaced out around a 100-foot wall. In reality, that's not a lot. This is the size you're sizing for the room. You've now already got, you're 90% there with the customer. They know what magnitude they need. And I use that as an example with some of the other ones to move this along a little quicker. That's a large 10,000-foot warehouse. These are, only, if you want to go with the larger ones, 10 kW heaters, 20 kW heaters, and how you space them out and lay them out will be part of the strategy we discuss in a moment. But let's say it's something more common, like 500 square feet, a garage, 25 by 20, a trailer, out in the oil field or out in a construction site. 25 by 20 by 10 is pretty much a trailer at this point. A storage trailer, maybe it's a construction trailer. And so I'm just going to make a quick modification because we've got the windows and doors the same to match that smaller trailer. I want to show you 2 quick things. So, we change the dimensions of the room. That's easier. Some of the other things that are going to change, obviously, is the net wall changes significantly. 96. And then these are going to go back down to 500. And it's certainly something for you guys to play around with and get an understanding of, but you shouldn't be scared of it. It's no matter what we're applying heat to the application, this makes it very, very simple and quick and easy, and you can show the customer where it's coming from, how you're calculating it. So I've already made all the changes. We kept it the same. So this is essentially that trailer or warehouse. Well, we're at 253, or I'm sorry, 25,000 watts. Well, that's easy. That's two 12 kW HVHs. And that makes a lot of sense. You put one in each corner. Yeah, that's pretty easy, pretty simple. You could get the answer to them in less than 5 minutes. Hey, you got a second? Well, let's see what size you need. Let's quote you an item. That's really easy. And and something we're going to talk about strategy in a minute. Another side of this is I live in Colorado. -5 is a bit of an extreme. Maybe they add a little more insulation. Maybe not. Maybe, you know, honestly, you're not going to be in there when it's -5 out. So let's use 40. Now we're down to a 10 kW heater. And this becomes part of that educating the customer where you want to be, where you want to, you know, set your goals. And explaining it to the customer, they'll make the selection. Maybe they only have a 10 amp, 20 amp breaker that they can run this off of. Okay, well, guess what? This is what you can expect. And you can design it and change it in front of them that fast and give them a good illustration. So I just wanted to point that out. I think that's something, this is an underutilized tool that we got in there. As simple as it is, it's really nice to have and to understand to show the customer. So I show you that you can do one 30 kW heater, but it's not going to circulate the hair very well. Two 12.5 kW heaters, one on each end, perfect size, easy, quick. And you're saving your own time because you're getting them where they need to be. Or like I suggested, what is the real situation? Well, maybe we're in the corner of a warehouse, or maybe there's another factor that limits the losses. Let's get a smaller heater in there, and they understand the ramifications of that. Quick, easy, and done. So there's a purpose of kind of illustrating that to you, that's an option for you in sizing comfort heaters. Then I mentioned before, the strategy. We're applying heat to a room. It's going to provide heat to the room. It's important to remember that. We can show you where the math comes from. We can show you about insulation losses. We can calculate for unknowns and for extreme cases. More importantly, what is the customer interested in? Maybe the limitation is, I've only got a 20 amp breaker to run this off, or a 50 amp breaker. Okay, well, let's start there and let's spread the heat out. This becomes you educating your customer. We have, and quite frankly, it's a pretty well simplified design, or a group of products that meet specific needs, but this is essentially it for your selection guide. You should be able to point a customer directly here and say, look, it's going to be one of these heaters that for your comfort heating application. Now, let's talk about how we lay it out, we size it. I can show you what your losses are going to be, and using that calculator where you fall into the different parameters, but now you can start adding your strategy to what they're doing to get the customer where they want to be and comfortable with what they're purchasing from you. Now you've added to your, you've added to them what they're looking for and to help lay it out for them, and more importantly, they now trust you that, look, you're trying to specifically design it for what they're looking for. You've added to your credibility to the customer. And again, they all heat. They're all providing heat. There's more than one answer and more than one layout for every heating application, and that's what you got to remember in the back of your head. And to be fast, especially with unit heaters. If they're calling, they just want to get a number or get a couple heaters in a row, especially when you're working with distribution or contractors. If any of you guys have experience dealing with contractors, they don't want to call you back. Now, they understand when you have to, if you're getting special pricing or check and delivery, but you got to get them something quick. And you got to get them something they're taking away that we can add to later. Maybe we change it to 220 kWs, or maybe drop it down to 210s. But they want something now to get an order of magnitude, to know where they're at so they can move on to the next thing. And if they do move on to the next thing, that means that they're okay. You help them with the comfort heating things. They know you've got them taken care of. They've got other things they got to move on to. And they're going to come back to you knowing that you've already got them something in front of them, or something they've wrote down somewhere, and you can move forward from there. So it's just something I cannot stress enough with these comfort heaters. We have competition in each of them, and you've just got to be quick. And I've got to say, that's probably the number one thing I hear back from most people is quickness in quote and delivery. They want something in front of them. Whether it's data sheets, spec sheets, order of magnitude, that's what we're trying to get them. Now, I've talked about comfort heating, specifically blower heaters, a lot. I'm going to jump over to radiant heaters really quick to kind of break it up some. This can be a very easy thing to design and quote and provide if you follow a couple quick guidelines. And I'm going to show those guidelines. I'm going to show you where they're at in the design guide. I'm going to show you where they're at in the I section of the catalog and how to apply them. And quite frankly, you don't even have to do the math. There's charts that meet all your needs. So, important safety note. We're always thinking of personal heating. Again, these are comfort heaters. These are radiant heaters. Think of the sun. Think of radiant heat. You're heating surfaces. The standard design for a radiant heater is 8 to 10 feet in the air because the average size of a human, 5 feet. We're using that as the medium. We want to get at least 3 foot or more separation of the heater to the person. And another side of this too, especially spot heating or even area heating, you can lay them out one by one depending on your roof. You know, what is my mounting ability? And you got to take that into consideration. But ideally, it's better to kind of have them coming from 2 sides. Because again, and quick funny story, I was at Los Alamos Labs one time, and I was down there to discuss their heating mechanisms, and I won't get into the details of the application, but trust me, it wasn't good. But the top of the drums were just frying the seals. And they're like, well, I don't understand, it's a heater. I'm like, yes, because you're just cooking the top of this thing. You're not heating any other space. And now that's why it's important to kind of overlay and to offset a lot of radiant heaters. If you want to hear more about that story, call me later. So our standard comfort heater reflectors, not our process heater radiant heaters, like our URADs or any of those, our star radiant heaters for comfort heating have 60-inch reflectors. So we can start with there. That's our math. That's our opening. That's the spray. That's the heated section basically. That's going from there. I mentioned before the 5-foot heating level is where our target is. You can see obviously by the illustration. You know, spot heating, multiple sides, it's all listed there. I'm not going to get too far into that. And then there's controls. Now, an interesting thing with radiant heaters and something to point out, now, location. Location is the same for comfort heater, or for blower heaters as well, right? We need the sensor somewhere around where we want to hear the temperature. Now, the thing with radiant heaters, though, if we put the sensor too high, too low, it's going to be, you know, dependent on where that radiant heat is hitting it. So maybe you put it out of the heating area and maybe set it based on the outside temperature. And that way it's not affected by the radiant heater as much. Remember, we're not heating air, we're heating surfaces, and if that probe or that sensor, or in some cases the thermostat, I've seen it done, is right in front of the radiant heater, you're going to be off in temperature. It's going to be very difficult to control and be comfortable for who you're designing it for. This is a good place to apply timers. A lot of times they'll have timers, turn them up. You know, we want to heat it for spot heating, a lot of times for snow melt, icing in driveways. Timers are a good use of control for radiant applications. So let's go to sizing. I mentioned before I'm going to make it, or hopefully illustrate it quick and easy. We're all worried about the design area, the heated area we want. Now, whether that's the floor of a workstation, maybe it's a garage, maybe it's a walkway. Anyone with any experience here, we get the direct burial conversation a lot for concrete and ice melting. Radiant heaters are a good alternative to that. We're not burying stuff in concrete. We're not putting a radiant heater above after the case is really good. It's like the over-the-side heater of tank heating. And it can be just as effective and sometimes better. So, but let's start with the surface area. We need an area. All these things are rated at 8 to 10 feet. If you want to use the standard guide here for designing, this gives you the watt density that you need in that surface area that we're calculating. And they have a couple different scenarios, right? Indoor personal comfort. The temperature desired differential, meaning if it's a colder area and it's 30 out and you want to make sure that it's 55, 60, you want to get a lot warmer. Obviously, you can see where you're going up into the 30s and 40s, in some cases 60 watts per square inch. And that's what's seen based on the area it hits per square foot. I apologize, per square foot. And that's what we're measuring the design area in, square feet. So just as an example, doing design area, back to that garage example I had before. Well, that's easy. It's 25 by 20 by 10. Perfect height. That's 500 square feet. It's indoors. I select from the chart. I see that 33 is good for that design to keep you, adequate. 16.5 kW. Maybe that's, 2 9 kWs, maybe two, maybe three 5 kWs. It could be a lot of things. We can put those in the corner of the room, and we're adequately sized. Maybe it's outdoor. Maybe it's a drive-up carport, and it's not well covered. So therefore, there's a lot of air changes, a lot of issues. We're up to 60 watts per square foot, and that comes out to be, based on the height, 30 kW. Well, that's pretty easy. That's standard. It's actually just one heater in the end, but you probably want to go two and split it up and have, multiple heating sections. I show you that chart. There's also one for ice and snow melting. We get this question a lot, and sometimes we don't realize that chart's even there. It's in the PDF I'm going to send you. It's on our website. It's even in the back of our catalog. Again, look how much higher the watts per square foot are on this chart on the right. That's significant. But that is based on your outside design temperatures and snowfall. Where do you get those? You get those from those charts at the very beginning. They'll be in the PDF. You can look them up online. That's for the average of the area. You can size radiant heaters now for these applications. And then it's basically grade school geometry from there. You can lay out your pattern. Like I mentioned before, building may not be square, but you can now square out pieces of the building. And then you can assess and overlay where the heaters go. Again, minor geometry here, but you can simply lay out the pattern for the customer. You know where it's applied. And more importantly, you can go take the charts from chart 2 here, and they're quite extensive. I only put just a snippet of there. They'll be in the PDF that you'll get, the design guide. This goes to mounting height. Maybe it's a truck garage, it's 20 foot in height. And it actually tells you specifically on the star comfort line, what heaters are we looking at? How much heat can be expected at what distance over this surface area? It's really quick, easy chart to use. If you have any questions about that, we obviously will have one-on-ones available to go through that in more detail. But I want everyone to see that and to kind of get an idea of how easy that can be to select radiant heaters for your customer and to do it simply over the phone, right in front of them, but more importantly, to do it quickly. If you go generating a quote and do a full design, that's great and that's good and that's standard procedure, but after you get off the phone with them, they're going to somebody else who can walk them through this or at least tell them what goes into designing these things for their comfort heating, especially if you're dealing with contractors. They want answers right away, or they want to know that at least they're covered, and then they'll move on to the next thing. So that's kind of the point I want you to take away from that sizing parameter. So that's kind of my spiel on comfort heating, the design tools and quick, easy use of them, and radiant heating. Now, moving on to design and strategy, I mentioned before I was going to do a quick walkthrough of the configurators, and I'll make it quick and I'll still stay within the hour. But there's, for the new folks, it's important for you to see how easily the configurator overlays with our price guides and our selection guides in the catalog. And even for, we'll say, the elder chromaloxians that are here, there are some gotchas and quirks that I want to point out, and even some selections that are not in the catalog that you need to understand what they are, specifically the CXH line, but they're there. So I'm going to start with a simple one, the CVEP. You can see, obviously, you've got all of 8 selections of kW, and that you don't need more than that. You spread them out if you need to. This is a convection heater. There is no blower. There is no unit. It convects the air out. It's great for small buildings, hallways, warehouses. Class 1, Div 1. You've got all your voltages covered, but there's not a lot of options to this. And what I'd like you to see, and I'm going to bounce over to that really quick, and for all of you everyone should know what the configurator or use the configurator. If you haven't, contact me afterwards. We'll get you all set up with that. Over here, so the CVEP, quick and simple. Simple till your Java runs. All right, so put your initials in, obviously, so they know who is designing and calculating it. The good thing with comfort heaters, it's not like immersion heaters or some of our other products. The KW and the designs and we'll say the unit sizes are all standardized. So you really can't do anything you can't do anything incorrect about it or apply it. So, you know, you've got your Chromalox design. If it's overseas, you got ATEX. If it's local, you got the UL, CSA, standard certified. You can do higher T ratings. We talk about T ratings in a sec. But here's something interesting I want to show you. When you select the T rating, it tells you what KWs are available. You may notice the higher KWs are not available for that. Move it around. Now you understand, you know, where they fall. So it literally does the deciding for you. You know, in this case, I want 3.2s for 6 kW. Pick your voltage and your phase, quick and easy. And then here's something I want to point out, and it gets forgotten a lot of times, or maybe some people just aren't comfortable with it. If we're doing voltages above 120, controls most commonly are in the 120 volt or less. It's important to remember that, because if we're supplying, you know, 480 to something, even if we're not providing a thermostat, it's important to understand what kind of control they have. What are they using? If they're using a 24 volt signal, if they're using a 120 volt signal, you got to know ahead of time to put the proper transformer in there for control. So in the case of a customer providing, you know, a control signal, if we don't supply it with the ability to understand that and to, you know, switch based on a 24 volt signal, they're going to be in trouble. We're giving them the wrong product. It is as simple as just asking them, what is your control circuit? Is it, you know, 120? Is it, you know, in some case 240? And that's going to be true for all of our products. And it actually correlates over to our heat trace as well. It's important to do that because when we design the heater, we have to make sure we put that in there. In the case of, if I want to do 120 volt internal control, well, I intend to put a thermostat in this one myself, and I do that. Done. It's that quick and simple. It gives you list price. You can see it over there, building right there. This part numbers already exist. Done. Again, I'm going to bounce through these pretty quick, but we can go through them in detail in one-on-ones, or if you want to discuss them further somewhere else. I just want everyone on the call to have some exposure to this. And more importantly, there's some quirks to some of these. Now, HT3Ds, it does not get simpler than quoting HT3Ds. There's actually no real options to them. They don't even have a breakdown menu. You can get a thermostat or you cannot get a thermostat. End of story. And you'll see that in the configurator as well. I'll punch through that real quick. They don't even give you a breakdown in the catalog. That's how simple these are. Now, why are back to that small little chart I showed you, why are HT3Ds so important? As from the first presentation, these are your hose down. They're stainless steel. NEMA 4 is moisture resistant, but NEMA 4X is corrosion resistant, and hence the purpose of the fiberglass box, the stainless steel design. And this really is a product leading design. Is everyone else still has the junction boxes with the door facing down, and I can tell you that is as simple as that sounds. That was a huge improvement on these designs. You know, the motor, the chassis, all of that. It definitely has everything you need for your moisture-resistant designs. We'll go 600 volt for a change. Then you pick your pilot light, your fan switch. Simple things, really. Maybe you want to put a disconnect switch on the side of it, and that's it. Done. I didn't select the control voltage. Back to control voltage discussion. Here we go again. Is it 24 volt? Is it 120 volt? Do I intend to provide a thermostat, or does the customer? Or are we putting a thermostat on the wall? Same scenario. As long as it's not installed in the unit itself, that's where you want the external supplied signal. But you've got to have the wiring in there to accommodate that. And again, check for the part number. There's your list price. There's your part number. If a part number is not available, which they most generally are, that's just taking a while. It'll pop up there. You'll have your design, and you're good. To keep this moving along, I'm not going to wait for it to catch up. Now, the HVHs, there it got up. Back over there. Breakdown, again, all very, very similar. Again, I'm not trying to bore you all. I'm not even going to go to the HVH line. So literally the selections, you see them, you know, voltage, wattage, size, they're all given to you. One thing about the HVH, it does have those, the options list right here, sticks. These can also be field installed. You want it to come, and so when you go to design the HVH, it's important to understand, do you want, and this goes back to being quick to your customer, do they want something out of the warehouse, which you can easily check on our website, or do they want something designed and delivered that has everything done with it and pre-wired with the time delay or the thermostat or whatever it is? That is the differential here. Are we trying to get something out of the warehouse that they're going to, you know, put the, you know, pop out the front and put the thermostat in themselves, or are you going to get it installed coming from the factory? And those are the two differences with the HVH. LUH, you know, again, our legacy blower heater, similar to the HVH in design. Basically, the HVH, all those things have, you know, flown down from the LUH for more cost-effective design. But again, all the same selections, all the same breakdowns. More importantly for, you know, the new folks out there, just how those overlap and come together. Now for everyone, I talked about this in the last presentation, and I want to focus on it a little bit more on this presentation, only because the configurator has some of this in it, and it's not as intuitive as you would think. And it's just important to remember that these three model numbers and specifically what they include. So the Model A is your standard. You can come with manual or automatic thermal reset cutout. And that is actually the chart you see in our catalog. That is the only option you have in our catalog. You may know CXHA. I'm sure they're going to, you know, Rob's going to update this, and it's going to be, you know, revised going into next year with some of these other options. But the B is that higher end, that newer thermal cutout. The B is, and when you go to select on it, is actually the high altitude construction right here. It will actually switch over to a B. That is switching out the thermal overtemp. So I will show that in a second, but everyone else, if there's anything you take away from this, and if you've been with Thermalux for a while, the B design is the high altitude thermal reset cutout. Then the XD design, and there's actually a couple variations of the XD design. There's the painted steel, there's the 316 stainless steel housing. Those are all options in the HD design. And you can get this design actually already in the configurator by clicking on Arctic Duty. And what that is it's applying that motor, the high-end motor for the -60 design guide. And that one I will actually demonstrate really fast in case there's any questions. And we can go through it further in detail with the 101s and anything else you want to talk about. Might even be on the exam. So again, all those selections from before. Grade classifications, different T ratings that we can offer. There's that Arctic Duty I spoke about. It's important to remember, if you select the Arctic Duty, that is the -60 rated motor. Last I heard, it's 15 to 16 weeks delivery time. You need to know that. This is a very specific application. You would be going for that. But know it's there, know what it's for. The wattages are all pre-selected for you, everything that's in our catalog. In case, you know, most commonly, you know, 480 design, 3-phase, 60 hertz, US, 50 hertz, UK, other places, important to remember. Maybe an integral thermostat, but so you may, our design is currently, let me get the control voltage here. We'll go 120, open glycol, so we'll go with an auto cutout. So you may see CXHA, and that would not may, you do. Now that's the standard design, but if I click this high altitude design, it became a B. I want everybody to see that and understand that. It's kind of explaining the chart here, but I want you to know that that was an option. And that's pretty much it. Those are some of the just little nuances of using the configurator in the design guide. The A, the B, and the XD. Now you can obviously check for a part number and assign a part number and do all that. There's already a part number exists. I know because
Eric, this is Elmer. Hey,
yeah.
I see a lot of people quote from the configurator, but they don't know how to move the description over to the quote. Could you show them how if you click on that right there?
You highlight it?
Yep. Hit Control C. Yep.
That's very good. That's a great point. So you highlight the whole thing, and now the window doesn't grow to the size of the verbiage on some of these, but it is there. Sorry?
Click the magnifier. Over to the left.
Okay. Oh, that brings the whole thing up. Okay, yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, perfect. Yes. So everyone, when you're quoting in quick design, we talk about getting to the customers quickly and doing the air heating and what they need. And in this case, it's 20 K or 10 kW heater I picked. Maybe there's 2 10 kW heaters, but now you can even send them the description, and it's you highlight it, Control C, and I'll even go as far as showing you. Maybe it's an email, maybe it's a Word document. I'll just start with a Word document for this example. Paste, done. You can modify, do whatever you want from here. You can obviously we got the CXHB. Maybe you want to give them special pricing, so we highlight it and give them their 45 off, whatever that is. Probably what 3,800, something like that, or 2,800, something close to that. And now you can modify it. This is making you self-sufficient. Get back to your customer to handle it quickly. Elmer, very good point. I'm glad you pointed that out. And that's true for any of these configurators. Highlight the design, and now you can modify it. You can cut and paste this into an e-quote on our website.
If it's a new part number, the part number won't show up on the web until the next day. So you have to copy and paste the part number and the description into the quote.
Correct. The way the system works, when that design goes through, the system runs at night. I'm sure it's like midnight Eastern or something like that, and it will actually, that part number right here, if we were to create a new one, would be loaded tomorrow on our website. You'd be able to punch it in, and that price, not the price I changed, obviously, the list price would show up on our web. So a customer, if you're specifying, if you're designing for a customer, they can go and look at it later. It'll be there the next day. They can order it later. Now, when you're doing a quote, you may or may not want to put the part number in your e-quote to the customer. All depends on how you want that handled. Maybe you want a second set of eyes on what you did if it does become an order. All of this is showing you all the tools and things available to you to get you so you can move forward. And really, I know I'm stretching it out into an hour of explaining all this stuff. This really should only take you 5 minutes to punch through and do a design for people. And that's the purpose of illustrating all of this. That's a very good point, Elmer. Is there anything else you think on that, or that's?
Hey, Derek, I have a quick comment about when you cut and paste. Some of those symbols will give you an error in the e-quote extranet. So like special symbols like asterisks and things like that, if you get an error, go and clean some of those up, and then it'll be able to save it.
Correct. Yeah. So some of them special characters do not save in our e-quote system, and you do have to be cautious of that. That's a good point. But that's again, it's probably too much information that you're able to pull and provide, which is good. The idea is to give you as much as possible and to give you the tools. This is just another tool in your toolbox, getting the customer what they need, and then applying the strategy. Do we want to go with lower kW, higher kW, multiple heaters? How do you want to design it is where you're really going to, dig in and get your, get the customer's confidence and move forward from there. Now, I am getting closer to the end. There is one other thing that I wanted to review with everyone on the call or in the presentation quickly. So, we kind of went through, hopefully, at least exposing you to some of the design tools. This is comfort heating. So we're talking, blower heaters, warehouses, what are, wash stations, radiant applications, workstations. So you got radiant applications, the star heater line. Where these things flow, how to design them. These are the same tools the AE is using. So, how do we capitalize? How do you how do you compete against your Roughneck, your Ouellette, your Q-Mark? I mean, all the different, I showed you that list in the first presentation. This is where, the field sales, this is where knowing this background, this is where your strategy falls into. Either it's, a pricing issue, a delivery issue, with maybe use a different product, but it all boils down to this little chart here on the bottom right are the products you have to pick from. They're very standardized. It's how you apply them, lay them out, and you can apply the heat in many, many different ways. There's no one way to do it. And that's where you have to get the skill and the knowledge to move forward and to really capitalize on a lot of these. Maybe we're in the LUH design, or like maybe we can get away with some HVHs because you have no specification that requires that. Or maybe you need something specific like the CXH, and now you have the design parameters to compete against the HAZLOC. So just that's where that's where your quality comes in. Now, going to market, I talked a little bit last time about where and how we sell these things. Resoundingly, the most common place for our comfort heater line, unless it's some huge mega project, it's going to come down to distribution. We have the territories that do the best with our comfort heater line have good distribution of comfort heaters, and they're easy to find. You know who has the competitive products in town. And most commonly, the customers, the end users, whether it's BP or the municipality, they buy from a local distributor, and that's where the cold weather program comes in. Is very important, and to know and understand that it's already in place. Most of you use it already. A couple key points I just want to point out to everyone, especially the new folks on the call. This cold weather distribution program, is $5,000 qualifying orders to get you qualified. Cold weather qualified is how it's termed internally, and that gets based on your reg number, your registration in the company. So if they call, whoever from that company calls, once they're set up, they're going to get that flat 45 discount off of list. Now, I say flat 45 discount off of list on your comfort heater products. That is true. Cold weather distribution program also includes cable. So, if we want to talk about cable, we absolutely can pull that into the conversation. But for comfort heaters specifically, 45 off of list, $5,000 qualifying order. Now, whether that's, you're putting a couple heaters in stock, which is very difficult to convince a customer to do it, but it's really important because we can't capture that lost business of they didn't have it on the shelf. A contractor calls in, so they need two or 4, 5, 10 kW heaters, whatever they are, and they say, oh, let me get back to you, so they're going to call you because we don't have any in stock. They just call down the street. So if it went from, I've actually tracked the call one time from border states to Wesco to QED to, they're just calling around town, who has it in stock. Now, we do keep a tremendous amount of stock in Tennessee, but it's important that's a tough conversation to have with your customer, but have that in the back of your head. How you sell it to your distributor, the freight allowed is a huge bonus. Because a lot of times your distributor is going to charge freight to the contractor or the end user already. And we give freight allowed. So, make sure your customer understands this, and more importantly, that $5,000 number, because if you get a distributor that comes in and can possibly place 2 orders that don't meet that, let's get those together and capitalize on this freight allowed. That's freight allowed in the U.S., bottom 48, or continental 48, however you look at it. And then there's also a one-time stock exchange. So at the end of the year, let's say we do get them to stock some product and we find out that that doesn't move. We can now exchange that, or we can return it if it's a stock item for a 25% restocking fee. If it's non-stock, it's a little bit different. But if you're going to stock unit heaters, that usually falls into the stock scenario. And what is stock? That's our PCN, product catalog number. It's in the catalog. They're ordering it. You already know. And then payment terms change from net 30 to net 45 days, which if you're a distributor and you're working with contractors, that's a good thing. So it's important to remember maybe some key points to put out with that. The distribution program has been in effect for a while. I will send it out with this as well in the Dropbox and everything else that goes along. So I know I touched on a lot of different topics. It was a little quick. but I kept it within the hour, which was the goal. A couple key points I want to point out moving forward with some of the trainings. Next month is heat transfer systems and boiler training, which is probably going to be likely very similar to this. We're going to go over CXH boilers, MOSs, and how to design and applications and how to be self-sufficient with that. Use the configurator. Also have the advanced field training kicking up next month. We've already got the direct connect, which will be, I guess, essentially 2 Fridays from now. After that, we're going to have the grease wasteways. If you have not accepted the invites for that, I will attach them in the summary of this today as well. But look for those. They're on the training site. And if you don't have the invite and you just want to attend, send me an email. If you don't attend, they will be recorded. And before everyone goes, to summarize and to complete today's presentation, obviously we had the presentation 1, which I've already provided. It will still be on the Dropbox link and on the team site. Presentation 2, which we just reviewed and went through. If there's any of this that you had questions about or you want to go back and reference, this is now recorded, will be available online or in the Dropbox. And the data sheets, the PDF, the design guides will all be provided with that. Everything that I just discussed. So you will have that. You can download it to your desktop or just know where to go back and look for it. And from here, I'm going to send out tonight with that email and all those links. There will be, if you've been part of this last year, there'll be a quick exam that focuses on the specific takeaways that I want you to take away from this to help with your strategy and the development of your territory. And in that exam, please, it shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. That's where you get your certification. So click on, give your, it's not anonymous by any means, because the idea is to take it. It's not designed to be failed. It's just to focus on the key points, and it's how we measure and give you your certificate of completion, which you see right there. If there are questions about this presentation, or you need more time after this, or something comes up after we get off the call, that's great. We still have the one-on-ones specific to this topic. It was easier to have them after this because there might be some questions about the web calculation. Maybe it's the configurator. And I've set aside 2 times and 2 WebExes available to anyone who feels or would like more time or discussion with me. And those will be tomorrow, the 20th, from 1 to 2 Mountain Time, and Friday from 1 to 2 as well. And we'll be available to discuss anything related to these topics. So I want to let you know that that's available, and those invites will go out with the email this afternoon that has the exam link, which I encourage all of you to go through, walk through it, if anything, just to make sure you took away what we're hoping you took away from this. And with that, I will stop the recording, first of all, and allow any of you to questions, comments, even constructive feedback. I appreciate anything that you guys may have.